I was in the middle of a presentation when my phone vibrated with the news that would shatter my world. Grandma Elaine was gone. Despite living 6,000 miles apart, we had stayed close through our Sunday video calls. She was my rock, my guiding light after my parents died. Now, sitting in a Tokyo conference room, I learned she had left me her beachfront condo in Florida, the place where we had shared so many precious memories. Little did I know that back home, my sister Amber was already planning to take it all away from me. 3 years ago, I accepted a marketing position in Tokyo that changed the trajectory of my career. At 32, I was leading an international team for a major cosmetics brand, building campaigns across Asia. The opportunity had been too good to pass up, even though it meant leaving behind everyone I loved, especially Grandma Elaine. Grandma had raised both me and my sister Amber after our parents died in a car accident when I was 14 and Amber was 16. That tragedy had bound us together in grief, but it affected us differently. I channeled my pain into determination, becoming the studious one who made Grandma proud. Amber, however, grew resentful and rebellious, constantly testing boundaries and causing Grandma endless worry. The beachfront condo in Clearwater, Florida, became our sanctuary. Grandma had purchased it with my grandfather 30 years ago, and after he passed, it became her permanent home. The 2-bedroom unit sat on the 11th floor of a beautiful complex with panoramic views of the Gulf. The sunsets from that balcony were pure magic, a canvas of orange and pink reflecting on the water. Grandma and I would sit there drinking lemonade, talking about life and my dreams, while Amber typically chose to hang out with local boys instead. Our Sunday video calls became sacred once I moved to Japan. Every week without fail, Grandma would position her tablet on the kitchen counter while she baked something delicious, and we would chat for hours. I would show her around Tokyo through my phone camera, and she would exclaim with delight at the neon signs and busy streets so different from her quiet beachside community. During those calls, we often discussed my plans to renovate the condo when I returned. My 3-year contract in Tokyo would end in 6 months, and I had already decided not to renew. I wanted to come home and be near Grandma again. We talked about replacing the kitchen countertops, updating the bathrooms, and repainting the walls in soft coastal colors. Grandma would smile and say, "This place will be yours someday, Pearl. I want you to make it your own." I knew this bothered Amber. During my rare conversations with my sister, she would make snide comments about me being the favorite or the golden child. The truth was more complicated. Grandma loved us both, but Amber had always kept her at arm's length while I embraced her wisdom and company. The distance between Amber and Grandma only seemed to grow wider as years passed, especially after Amber married Dave, a real estate agent with a slick smile and wandering eyes who Grandma never quite trusted. When Grandma's lawyer emailed me the official inheritance documents, I wasn't surprised to learn she had left me the condo. She had always been transparent about her intentions. According to her will, Amber would receive Grandma's savings and jewelry collection, which was actually worth more than the condo in pure monetary terms. But I knew the real value of the condo wasn't in dollars, but in memories. I had been diligently sending money to Amber each month to cover my share of the maintenance fees and property taxes for the condo. I wanted to be responsible, even from afar. But last week, I received a notice from the Homeowners Association that payments were 3 months overdue. When I checked my bank records, I confirmed that I had transferred the money to Amber as usual. Why hadn't she been making the payments? I sent her a text. "Hey, got a notice about unpaid HOA fees. Is everything okay with the payments I've been sending?" Her reply came 12 hours later. "Must be a mistake. We'll look into it." That was the first red flag, though I didn't recognize it for what it was at the time. Instead of following up or demanding answers, I simply paid the overdue amount directly to the HOA, chalking it up to a possible administrative error or Amber being disorganized as usual. I had no idea that this small discrepancy was just the first sign of a betrayal that would soon turn my life upside down. 2 weeks after discovering the unpaid maintenance fees, I still hadn't heard anything more from Amber. Our communication had always been sporadic, but now it felt like she was deliberately avoiding me. My texts about Grandma's other belongings went unanswered. My emails about planning a memorial gathering when I returned to the States were met with vague replies or silence. Probably just busy with the kids, I told myself, trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. Amber had 2 children, Taylor and Jake, both in elementary school. Between their activities and her part-time job at a local boutique, I knew her schedule was full. Still, something felt off. Then came the email from Mrs. Jenkins, Grandma's neighbor and friend for over 20 years. The subject line alone made my stomach drop. New owners? Dear Pearl, she wrote, I hope you're doing well in Japan. I was confused yesterday when I saw a young couple moving furniture into Elaine's condo. They said they just purchased the unit and were very excited about the view. I thought you were planning to move in when you returned from abroad. Perhaps I misunderstood. Just wanted to check if everything is all right. Send my love from Florida. Martha Jenkins. I read the email 3 times, each time feeling the blood drain further from my face. New owners? That was impossible. The condo was mine now, legally transferred through Grandma's will just 2 months ago. My hands trembled as I dialed Mrs. Jenkins's number, not caring that it was 3 in the morning in Florida. I'm so sorry to wake you, I said when she answered, her voice thick with sleep. Pearl, honey, is everything okay? You mentioned new people moving into Grandma's condo. Are you certain it was hers? Unit 1115? Oh, yes, dear. They were definitely moving into Elaine's place. Such a nice young couple. Said they got a good deal because the seller was motivated. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. Did they mention who they bought it from? They didn't say a name, just mentioned they worked with a local agent. Dave something, I think. Dave. My sister's husband. I thanked Mrs. Jenkins and immediately tried calling Amber. Straight to voicemail. I tried Dave's number. Same result. I sent texts, emails, even a message on Facebook. Nothing. Desperate for more information, I reached out to Thomas Wilson, a family friend who lived about 20 minutes from the condo complex. Though it was the middle of the night in Florida, I sent him an urgent email asking if he could drive by the building the next day. While waiting for a response, I tried accessing the Florida Property Appraiser's website to check the ownership records, but navigating the system from abroad proved frustrating. The time difference meant I couldn't call their office during business hours, and the online search function kept timing out due to my international connection. The next day at work, I could barely focus on my presentation to the executive team. My colleague Haruka noticed my distraction. Pearl-san, you look pale. Are you feeling sick? I confided in her, explaining the situation as best I could. Have you checked social media? She suggested during our lunch break. Perhaps your sister has posted something that could give you more information. I rarely use social media, and Amber and I weren't even connected on most platforms. We had drifted that far apart, but Haruka's suggestion was worth a try. I pulled up Instagram and searched for Amber's account. What I saw felt like a physical blow. There was my sister, posing in front of the Eiffel Tower with a glass of champagne. The post was dated just 3 days ago. The caption read, "Living my best life. European tour stop number 2. Amazing what a little financial freedom can do. Blessed property investor life selling for success." I scrolled through her recent posts. Barcelona, Madrid, designer shopping bags, expensive restaurants, all posted within the last 2 weeks. My phone pinged with an email from Thomas. Pearl, I just drove by the condo. There's definitely someone new living there. Spoke briefly with them when I pretended to be delivering a package. They said they closed on the property last month. Didn't want to raise suspicions by asking more questions. Let me know what you want me to do next. The pieces were coming together in a horrifying picture. Somehow, Amber had sold Grandma's condo out from under me and was now gallivanting across Europe with the proceeds. But how? The property was legally mine. She couldn't just sell something she didn't own. Could she? I stood in front of my boss, Mr. Tanaka, trying to keep my voice steady as I requested emergency leave. Family emergency, I explained, bowing slightly as was customary. I need to return to the United States immediately. His face showed concern mixed with disappointment. Pearl-san, the Kyoshi campaign launches next week. Your team needs your leadership. I understand, sir. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't critical. After a long pause, he nodded. 3 days. That is all I can approve. We both knew it was impossible to fly to Florida, resolve a complex property issue, and return to Tokyo in 3 days. What Mr. Tanaka was really saying was that my hard-earned promotion, scheduled to be announced next month, was now in jeopardy. Thank you for understanding, I said, accepting the impossible terms. The 18-hour journey from Tokyo to Tampa was excruciating. Every minute felt like an hour as my mind cycled through confusion, hurt, and growing anger. How could Amber do this? We had our differences, but this was theft, pure and simple, and not just of money, but of Grandma's legacy and my future home. I landed in Tampa at 11:30 in the morning, rented a car, and drove straight to the condo in Clearwater. The familiar palm-lined streets and the sight of the Gulf waters would normally fill me with joy, but today they only intensified my sense of loss. At the condo building, I used the entry code that had remained unchanged for years and took the elevator to the 11th floor. Standing before Unit 1115, I hesitated, then knocked on what should have been my own door. A young woman with a baby on her hip answered, her welcoming smile faltering at the sight of my travel-worn appearance. "Can I help you?" she asked, bouncing the fussing infant. "I'm Pearl Stevens," I said, my voice barely steady. This condo belonged to my grandmother. It was left to me in her will. Her eyes widened. "Oh, we purchased this unit last month. We have all the proper documentation." "From whom did you buy it?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "The owner," she replied, growing defensive. "Everything was handled legally through a real estate agent." "May I ask who that was?" "Dave Richards, from Sunshine Coast Properties." "My brother-in-law." "Of course." "Would you mind showing me the purchase documents?" I asked, trying to sound calmer than I felt. She hesitated, then called over her shoulder, "Brian, can you come here?" Her husband appeared, and after a brief, whispered conversation, he retrieved a folder. With obvious reluctance, he showed me the sale documents. There it was, in black and white. The seller was listed as Pearl Stevens, represented by Amber Richards with power of attorney. My name. My forged signature. I thanked them, apologized for the intrusion, and left before I could break down in front of these innocent buyers who were caught in my sister's web of deceit. My next stop was the county records office, where I confirmed what I already knew. According to their files, I had sold the condo to Brian and Melissa Carter 3 months ago for $350,000, a good $70,000 below market value. I tried calling Amber again, straight to voicemail. I left a message, my voice shaking with rage now rather than shock. "Amber, I know what you did. I'm in Florida. You sold Grandma's condo using my name. Call me back immediately, or my next call will be to the police." With nowhere else to go, I contacted my childhood friend Jessica, who lived about 45 minutes away in Tampa. She was shocked to hear my story, but didn't hesitate to offer her guest room. "Stay as long as you need," she insisted, hugging me tightly when I arrived. I can't believe Amber would do something like this. That evening, Jessica helped me search for a good real estate attorney while I tried repeatedly to reach my sister. Every call went unanswered. "You know," Jessica said as we sat at her kitchen table, "what I don't understand is how she could sell the property in your name. Wouldn't she need your signature on a bunch of documents?" "She would," I agreed, the horrible truth dawning on me. "Which means she forged my signature. That's not just civil fraud, that's a criminal offense." The next morning, I had my first consultation with Martin Williams, a real estate attorney with 30 years of experience. His office was in a converted Victorian house in downtown Tampa, the walls lined with law books and framed credentials. "Let me get this straight," he said after I explained the situation. "Your grandmother left you her condo in her will. The will was properly probated. The property was legally transferred to your name. Yet somehow your sister sold it without your knowledge while you were out of the country." "That's correct. And you've confirmed that your sister's husband was the real estate agent for the transaction?" I nodded. "Do you have any idea how she might have managed this?" I shook my head, feeling helpless. "I'll need to investigate the documentation filed with the sale," he said, making notes. "The most likely explanation is a fraudulent power of attorney document." "What's that?" "It's a legal instrument that would give your sister the authority to act on your behalf, including selling property. But you would have had to sign it for it to be valid." I frowned. "I never signed anything like that for the condo." He looked up from his notepad. "Think carefully. Did you ever sign any legal document giving your sister authority to act for you, even for something unrelated?" A memory surfaced, hazy at first, then with startling clarity. Years ago, before I moved to Japan, I gave Amber power of attorney so she could sell my car if I couldn't find a buyer before I left. But that was for a specific purpose, for a specific item. Martin's expression turned grim. Unfortunately, if the document wasn't properly limited in scope or duration, she might have been able to use it for other purposes. The investigation moved quickly. By the end of the day, Martin had obtained copies of all the documents related to the condo sale. My suspicions were confirmed. Amber had indeed used the old power of attorney document, altering it to remove the specific limitations related to my car sale. "This is clear fraud," Martin assured me. "The document has been doctored. We have a strong case to invalidate the sale." But this created another problem. The innocent couple now living in the condo had purchased it in good faith. They would be victims, too, if the sale was reversed. "What about Brian and Melissa Carter?" I asked. "This isn't their fault. They would have recourse against your sister for the purchase price plus damages," Martin explained. "But yes, they could potentially lose their new home." That evening, my phone finally rang with Amber's number. I answered immediately. "How dare you threaten me?" She spat without preamble. "How dare I? You stole my inheritance, Amber. You committed fraud." "That condo should have been mine," she shot back. "You were always the favorite, always so perfect. Pearl gets the good grades, Pearl gets the fancy job, Pearl gets the beachfront property." "Grandma left you her savings and jewelry," I reminded her. "That was worth more than the condo." She scoffed. "Cash and old lady jewelry. Big deal. That condo is prime real estate, and you weren't even using it. You were off in Japan living your fabulous life while I was stuck here dealing with everything after she died. So you decided to steal from me? Your own sister? I deserve that money more than you, and there's nothing you can do about it now. The property is sold, the money spent, and you can't prove anything." The conversation devolved further from there, with Amber refusing to acknowledge any wrongdoing. She hung up on me when I mentioned that I'd hired an attorney. The next day, Martin called with news. "I found something interesting," he said, his voice tinged with satisfaction. "Your sister made a crucial mistake with the power of attorney document." "What kind of mistake?" "The kind that makes it completely invalid. She didn't have it properly notarized. The notary seal is missing the required information. In Florida, that renders the entire document void. So the sale can be invalidated?" "Potentially, yes. We have grounds to take this to court." For the first time since receiving Mrs. Jenkins's email, I felt a glimmer of hope. There was a chance I could reclaim what was rightfully mine. That hope was quickly tempered by a text message from a number I didn't recognize. "Back off, or everyone will know your family's dirty secrets. Dave." My brother-in-law was now making threats. What family secrets could he possibly be referring to? As far as I knew, there weren't any. But the intimidation tactic itself was telling. Amber and Dave were getting desperate. Martin advised me to keep all communications from Amber and Dave, including the threatening text. "Documentation is critical," he emphasized as we prepared to file the lawsuit to invalidate the condo sale. Word spread quickly through the family once legal papers were filed. My phone began lighting up with calls and messages from relatives I rarely heard from. Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister, called to beg me to keep family matters in the family. "You don't air dirty laundry in public, Pearl," she scolded. "Whatever the issue, you girls need to work it out privately." Uncle Robert was more direct. "Do you really want to see your sister in jail? Because that's where fraud charges could lead." Their reactions made me wonder what Amber had been telling them. I soon found out when Cousin Bethany forwarded me an email Amber had sent to the extended family. It portrayed me as an absentee granddaughter, who had abandoned Grandma to pursue a selfish career abroad, only to come swooping in for the inheritance. According to Amber's version, she had been Grandma's primary caregiver for years, sacrificing her own opportunities to look after her. Nothing could be further from the truth. While I couldn't be physically present due to my job in Japan, I had remained deeply connected to Grandma. Amber, meanwhile, had visited Grandma perhaps once a month at best, usually when she needed money or free babysitting. I was hurt that family members who should know better were taking Amber's side or, at minimum, pressuring me to drop the legal proceedings. Only Grandma's sister, Great Aunt June, called to offer support. Elaine told me exactly what she wanted to do with her assets, June said firmly. She was of sound mind until the end, and she wanted you to have that condo, Pearl. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Meanwhile, the legal investigation continued. Martin discovered that Amber had drained her bank account, spending lavishly on travel, designer clothes, and a new SUV. Dave had received a substantial commission from the condo sale, and there was evidence they were considering purchasing a larger home in an upscale neighborhood. My boss in Tokyo was growing impatient with my extended absence. "We need a firm return date, Pearl-san," he emailed. "The team cannot operate without leadership indefinitely." I was torn between my career and justice. If I returned to Tokyo now, the legal proceedings would drag on without me, potentially for months. If I stayed to fight, I would likely lose the promotion I had worked toward for years, possibly even my job. Then came the bombshell. Martin called me into his office, his expression serious but with a hint of triumph. "We've uncovered something significant," he said, pointing to a document on his desk. "Your grandmother's condo wasn't just a regular property. It was held in a trust." "A trust? What does that mean?" A trust is a legal arrangement where one person holds property for another's benefit, under specific terms. In this case, your grandmother established a trust for the condo with very particular conditions about its transfer and sale. He showed me the trust document, which I had never seen before. Grandma had placed the condo in a trust 5 years ago, naming herself as the trustee during her lifetime and me as the successor trustee and beneficiary after her death. "The critical part," Martin continued, "is this clause here." He pointed to a paragraph halfway down the page. "The trust explicitly states that the property cannot be sold without the express written consent of the beneficiary, which is you, executed on the trust's official letterhead and witnessed by the trust's appointed attorney." I looked up from the document, beginning to understand. So even with a valid power of attorney. Exactly. Your sister couldn't legally sell the property because the trust supersedes any power of attorney. The condo sale was invalid from the start, regardless of the forged documents. So what happens now? Martin leaned back in his chair, a smile playing at his lips. "Now we file an amended complaint with the court, highlighting the trust violation. And we request an immediate injunction to freeze any remaining proceeds from the sale." That evening, my phone rang. It was Amber. "I heard you're still pushing forward with this ridiculous lawsuit," she said, her voice casual, almost smug. "You're wasting your time and money, Pearl. The condo is sold. The deal is done. Is that why you're calling? To gloat?" "I'm calling because family members keep bugging me about this. Look, I did you a favor. That place needed tons of work. The HOA fees were going up. You're better off with cash. Cash that you spent on yourself," I pointed out. "I deserved a break after dealing with Grandma's funeral and all her stuff, while you were too busy in Japan to bother coming home." The audacity of her statement left me momentarily speechless. "You know," she continued, "you should thank me. I got a great price in a down market. Any other agent would have sold it for much less." "Thank you? For stealing from me?" She laughed. "You can't steal what's already sold. Anyway, Dave says your little lawsuit doesn't have legs. The statute of limitations on contesting the power of attorney has expired." "That's interesting," I replied, my voice steady now. "Did Dave also tell you about Grandma's trust?" There was a pause. "What trust?" "The trust that holds the condo. The one that makes any sale without my explicit consent as trustee completely invalid." Another pause. Longer this time. "You're bluffing. My lawyer found it yesterday. The documentation is quite clear." "Whatever," she said. but her voice had lost its confidence. "Dave will figure something out. He always does." "Not this time, Amber. The law is very specific about trust violations. You and Dave could be facing serious consequences." "Are you threatening me now?" "I'm stating facts. You sold property you had no right to sell." She hung up without another word. The next day, Martin called with more news. "We've been granted the emergency injunction. Any remaining funds from the sale are now frozen pending the outcome of our case." It was a small victory, but an important one. At least Amber and Dave couldn't spend what was left of my inheritance while the case proceeded. But the family pressure was intensifying. Relatives were taking sides, with most pressuring me to drop the case for the sake of family harmony. Few seemed concerned with the actual theft or the fact that Amber had committed fraud. Then came the family secrets Dave had threatened to reveal. Amber began telling relatives that I had stolen money from Grandma years ago, that I had emotional problems requiring medication, and that I had abandoned a fiancé in the U.S. when I moved to Japan. All fabrications designed to damage my credibility and paint me as unstable and untrustworthy. It was a dark time. My Tokyo boss finally delivered an ultimatum: return within the week or be replaced. My family was fractured by conflict. And despite the legal merits of my case, I knew that court proceedings could drag on for months or even years. I wondered if it might be easier to give up, to accept the loss, and move on with my life. Then I found Grandma's journal. Jessica and I had been sorting through some of Grandma's personal effects that Aunt June had saved for me when I discovered a leather-bound book at the bottom of a box. It was Grandma's journal from the last 2 years of her life. That night, curled up in Jessica's guest room, I began to read. Most entries were ordinary reflections on daily life. A visit from a friend, a beautiful sunset, a new recipe she'd tried. But as I continued reading, a disturbing pattern emerged in the entries from the 6 months before her death. "Amber stopped by today," one entry read. She brought up the condo again, asking if I'd considered downsizing to a retirement community. When I told her I was happy where I was, she mentioned how much the property taxes had increased. I know what she's doing. She's done this before. A month later, Amber brought a document for me to sign today. Said it was related to my health insurance. The print was so small, and she was in such a rush. I told her I needed my glasses and time to read it properly. She seemed annoyed and took it back, saying she'd return another day. Something doesn't feel right. And most disturbing of all, an entry from just 3 weeks before her death. Dave came by without Amber. He had real estate listings for condos in assisted living communities. Told me I needed to think about my future and that the responsible thing would be to sell this place now. When I mentioned that I'd already decided to leave the condo to Pearl, he became quite short with me. Said I was being unfair to Amber, who needs the money more. I asked him to leave. "I'm changing the locks tomorrow." The journal painted a clear picture of Amber and Dave's attempts to manipulate Grandma into selling the condo before her death or changing her will to leave it to Amber. Their scheme had simply shifted after Grandma died, targeting me instead. I shared these revelations with Martin, who agreed they strengthened our case by establishing a pattern of predatory behavior, but I was still torn about how far to take this. Did I really want to see criminal charges brought against my only sister? Meanwhile, my professional life was crumbling. I officially lost my position in Tokyo when the week passed without my return. My boss was apologetic but firm. "We will provide excellent references," he assured me. But we needed to promote Haruka to maintain team continuity. With my career in limbo and the legal battle just beginning, I fell into a deep depression. I was staying in a city I no longer called home, fighting a sister who had betrayed me, and watching family members choose sides in a conflict that should have been clear-cut. What had I done to deserve such betrayal? Was the condo worth all this pain? Jessica found me one evening staring blankly at the wall, Grandma's journal open beside me. "You need to get out of this house," she declared. "We're going for a walk on the beach." The Florida evening was warm and humid as we strolled along the shoreline. The Gulf stretched before us, painted in oranges and pinks by the setting Sunday. It reminded me of evenings on Grandma's balcony. "I'm thinking about giving up," I confessed to Jessica. Maybe I should just let Amber have the money and move on with my life. Jessica stopped walking and faced me. Is that what your grandmother would want? For you to let someone steal what she explicitly left to you? No, but nothing. This isn't just about a condo or money, Pearl. It's about honoring your grandmother's wishes. It's about right and wrong. She was right, of course. Giving in to Amber's theft would be a betrayal of Grandma's memory and her clearly expressed desires. I had to see this through, whatever the cost. The next day, Martin called with news that would change everything. Pearl, I've been reviewing the trust documents more carefully, and I've discovered something extraordinary. What is it? Your grandmother included what's called a penalty clause. If anyone attempts to circumvent her wishes regarding the distribution of trust assets, they don't just lose their claim, they become liable for damages equal to 3 times the property's value. 3 times? But that would be over $1 million. Exactly. And given the evidence we've gathered about your sister's actions, this clause could absolutely be enforced by the court. I sat in stunned silence, absorbing this information. Your grandmother was no fool, Martin continued. She must have anticipated something like this might happen. When I first saw this clause, I thought to myself, what a smart woman. Silly girl to try to outsmart her. Silly girl, the phrase from the thumbnail text. Amber had indeed made a crucial mistake, one that could cost her far more than she had gained from her theft. But the magnitude of potential consequences gave me pause. I don't want to financially ruin my sister, I said after a moment. I just want what's rightfully mine. That's your decision to make, Martin replied. But this gives us tremendous leverage in settlement negotiations. A new path forward was becoming clear. I didn't need to pursue the harshest penalties to achieve justice. We could use this discovery to force a fair resolution that would restore my inheritance without destroying Amber in the process. That evening, I received an unexpected visitor at Jessica's house. It was Dave, looking considerably less confident than usual. Can we talk? He asked, standing awkwardly on the front porch. Jessica gave me a concerned look, but I nodded that it was okay. We sat in the backyard where Jessica could keep an eye on us from the kitchen window. Amber doesn't know I'm here, Dave began, his voice low, but we received your lawyer's letter about the trust violation and the penalty clause. I said nothing, waiting for him to continue. Look, things got out of hand. We never meant for it to go this far. You forged documents and sold property that wasn't yours to sell, I pointed out. That seems pretty intentional. He ran a hand through his hair. It was a mistake. A bad one. But this penalty clause would ruin us. We don't have that kind of money. You should have thought about consequences before stealing from me. I know. He leaned forward. But think about the kids, Pearl. Your niece and nephew. They shouldn't suffer because of our mistake. It was a low blow bringing the children into it. But he wasn't entirely wrong. Taylor and Jake were innocent in all this. What are you asking for? A settlement. Something we can actually manage. We still have about $150,000 from the sale. We can give that back, and maybe set up a payment plan for the rest. I considered his offer. It was far less than what I was entitled to, both legally and morally. But it was a start. I'll discuss it with my lawyer, I said finally. But any settlement would need to include the full return of the condo to me. Dave's face fell. That's going to be complicated. The Carters have a mortgage now, they're settled in. You created this mess, I reminded him. Now you need to fix it. After Dave left, I called Martin to discuss the encounter. He was skeptical of Dave's sudden willingness to negotiate. Let's keep pushing forward with the legal proceedings, he advised. If they're serious about settling, they'll make a formal offer through their attorney. The next morning, everything changed again. Martin called, his voice excited. I've been doing more digging into the trust documentation, he said, and I've found something that changes our entire approach. What now? The condo wasn't just in a trust with the penalty clause. The trust had specific terms about how the property could be transferred or sold that make the transaction with the Carters fundamentally invalid. But they already bought it and moved in, I said, confused. Yes, but the trust specifies that any sale of the property must be approved by the trustee in writing. That's you after your grandmother's death using the trust's official documentation. Since that never happened, The sale isn't just fraudulent, it's completely void. It never legally occurred. So what does that mean for the Carters? They have a claim against your sister and brother-in-law for selling them property they had no right to sell. But the condo still legally belongs to the trust, with you as beneficiary. It was the breakthrough we'd been waiting for. Not only had Amber committed fraud, but she had done so in a way that couldn't possibly succeed due to the trust's ironclad terms. I thought about Grandma, how meticulously she had planned everything. She must have suspected that something like this might happen and taken steps to protect her wishes even after she was gone. "What do we do now?" I asked. "Now," Martin said with satisfaction, "we prepare for a very different kind of confrontation." Armed with our newfound leverage, Martin suggested a direct approach. "It's time to confront your sister with the full legal reality of her situation," he said. "We can do this in my office, with both attorneys present." I had a different idea. The whole family is gathering at Uncle Robert's this weekend for his birthday. Amber and Dave will be there. So will all the relatives who've been pressuring me to drop this. Martin understood immediately. "A public confrontation. Are you sure that's what you want? They've been spreading lies about me behind my back. I want everyone to hear the truth at once." In preparation, Martin drafted a comprehensive settlement agreement outlining our terms. Amber and Dave would return all remaining funds from the condo sale, arrange for the Carters to be compensated from their own resources, and publicly acknowledge their wrongdoing. In exchange, I would waive the penalty clause and not pursue criminal charges. Uncle Robert's birthday gathering was at his sprawling ranch-style home in Sarasota. As I arrived with Jessica for moral support, I felt a mix of determination and apprehension. This confrontation would forever change my relationship with Amber, and possibly with other family members. Conversation stopped when I walked in. Aunt Patricia rushed over, her face tight with concern. "Pearl, I hope you're not planning to cause a scene," she whispered urgently. "This is Robert's Day." "I'm just here for the celebration," I assured her, though we both knew it wasn't entirely true. Amber and Dave arrived 30 minutes later. When Amber spotted me across the room, she froze momentarily before plastering on a smile and deliberately moving to the opposite side of the gathering. Throughout the afternoon, I bided my time, participating in the celebration while waiting for the right moment. It came after dinner, when the family was gathered in the large living room for cake. I caught Jessica's eye and nodded slightly. It was time. "Before we continue the celebration," I said, rising from my seat, "I have something important to address with the family." Uncle Robert looked annoyed at the interruption, but Great Aunt June nodded encouragingly. "As many of you know, there's been a situation regarding Grandma Elaine's condo," I began. "I'd like to clear up some misconceptions." Amber started to stand. "This is hardly the time or place." "Actually, it's the perfect time and place," I countered firmly. "Since you've been sharing your version with everyone, it's only fair they hear mine too, along with the legal facts." I outlined the situation succinctly. Grandma's clear intention to leave me the condo, Amber's fraudulent sale using forged documents, and the subsequent discovery of the trust that made the entire transaction invalid. "What your sister isn't telling you," Dave interrupted, "is that they had an arrangement. Pearl verbally agreed to sell the condo and split the proceeds." "That's completely false," I stated calmly. "And I have Grandma's journal that shows you and Amber were trying to pressure her into selling the condo before she died." Murmurs spread through the room. Amber's face flushed red. "Even if that were true," Amber said, her voice rising, "you abandoned Grandma when you moved to Japan. I was here dealing with everything." "That's not what Grandma's journal says," I replied. "And it's not what her trust says either. Did you know she created a trust specifically to prevent the condo from being sold without proper authorization?" I could see by the flicker in Amber's eyes that she hadn't known this detail. "The trust includes a penalty clause," I continued. "Anyone who attempts to circumvent Grandma's wishes becomes liable for 3 times the property's value. That's over $1 million, Amber." A stunned silence fell over the room. Several relatives looked at Amber with new understanding. "You're bluffing," she said, but her voice trembled. I nodded to Jessica, who handed me a folder. "These are copies of the trust documents. Feel free to examine them, My attorney has the originals." As the papers circulated among the family, the mood shifted tangibly. The evidence was irrefutable. "Pearl, what do you want from this?" Uncle Robert asked, his earlier annoyance replaced with concern. "Justice," I replied simply. "The return of what's rightfully mine, an acknowledgement of the wrong that was done." I pulled out the settlement agreement Martin had prepared. "I'm willing to waive the penalty clause and not press criminal charges if Amber and Dave agree to these terms." Dave took the document, scanning it quickly. His face paled. "This would bankrupt us." "You should have thought of that before selling property that wasn't yours," Great Aunt June interjected sharply. "Elaine would be heartbroken to see what you've done." Amber's composure finally cracked. "You always got everything!" she shouted at me, tears streaming down her face. The good grades, the prestigious job, Grandma's approval, and now her precious condo too. What about me? What about what I deserve? "Grandma left you her savings and jewelry," I reminded her. "Worth more than the condo. But you wanted it all, didn't you?" She had no answer for that. In that moment, with the family witnessing her breakdown, Martin's assistant arrived as planned. She handed me an envelope. "What's that?" Amber asked suspiciously. "Legal papers," I replied, opening the envelope. "The court has granted our emergency motion. The sale of the condo has been officially invalidated, and all your assets are frozen pending resolution of the case." Dave grabbed the papers, reading frantically. "This can't be legal." "It's entirely legal," I assured him. The judge was quite clear. The trust provisions make your actions not just fraudulent, but void from the beginning. I addressed the entire family. I didn't want it to come to this. All I wanted was what Grandma intended me to have. Amber chose to steal from me instead, and then lie to all of you about it. The room was silent, as everyone processed the implications. Even Aunt Patricia, who had been Amber's staunchest defender, looked troubled. "You have a choice now," I said directly to Amber and Dave. "Sign the settlement agreement or face the full legal and financial consequences of your actions, including possible criminal charges." Dave pulled Amber aside, and they engaged in a heated, whispered conversation. The rest of the family watched uncomfortably. Finally, they returned. "We need time to consult our attorney," Dave said stiffly. "You have until tomorrow," I replied. "After that, we proceed with all claims." As the confrontation ended and the gathering awkwardly resumed, various family members approached me. Some apologized for believing Amber's lies. Others expressed shock at the extent of her deception. Great Aunt June hugged me tightly. "Elaine would be proud of you for standing up for yourself," she whispered, "and for being willing to show mercy despite what they did." The next morning, Martin called. "They've agreed to the settlement terms," he reported. "Their attorney contacted me first thing. They'll sign the papers this afternoon." Relief washed over me. The nightmare was finally approaching resolution. Later that day, as I sat in Martin's office watching Amber and Dave sign the settlement documents, I felt no joy in my victory, only sadness for what our relationship had become. Amber wouldn't meet my eyes as she signed her name with a shaking hand. "For what it's worth," I said quietly as they prepared to leave, "I never wanted it to be like this." She paused at the door. "Neither did I," she replied, so softly I almost didn't hear it. Then she was gone. 1 year later, I stood on the balcony of Grandma's condo, my condo, now watching the sunset paint the Gulf waters in shades of orange and pink. After everything that happened, I had decided to keep my promise to return and make this place my home. The path to full resolution hadn't been simple. After Amber and Dave signed the settlement agreement, we still had to deal with Brian and Melissa Carter, the innocent couple who had purchased the condo. Martin worked tirelessly to ensure they were made whole through a combination of the return sale proceeds and seizure of Dave's real estate license bond. They eventually found another beachfront property in the same complex, and we occasionally exchanged pleasantries when crossing paths. Amber and Dave faced significant consequences beyond the financial settlement. Dave lost his real estate license due to the fraudulent transaction, and they were forced to sell their home to cover their debts. They moved to Tennessee to start fresh, a decision that probably benefited everyone involved. As for me, I didn't return to Tokyo. Instead, I used my international marketing experience to start a consulting business helping Florida companies expand into Asian markets. Working for myself gave me the flexibility to create the life I wanted, honoring Grandma's legacy while building my own future. The renovation plans Grandma and I had discussed became reality. I updated the kitchen with quartz countertops and soft blue cabinetry that reflected the Gulf waters. The bathrooms now featured coastal-inspired tiles, and the walls throughout were painted in the soothing colors we had chosen together. Everything was exactly as we had imagined it. My relationship with the extended family slowly healed. Aunt Patricia eventually apologized for taking Amber's side without question. Uncle Robert invited me to his fishing trips. And Great Aunt June became a regular visitor, often sitting with me on this very balcony, sharing more stories about Grandma that I'd never heard. Amber and I remained estranged for months after the settlement, but on the anniversary of Grandma's death, she sent me an email that surprised me. "I've been in therapy," she wrote, "working through my jealousy and resentment. What I did was unforgivable, I know that. But I'm trying to become someone better. Someone Grandma would have been proud of. Someone Taylor and Jake can look up to. I don't expect your forgiveness, but I wanted you to know." It was a small olive branch, but a significant one. I replied with appreciation for her honesty and an openness to small steps toward reconciliation. We weren't close, and might never be again, but we were finding a way to coexist as family without the toxic dynamics of the past. The greatest lesson from this painful journey was one about standing up for yourself while maintaining your humanity. I could have pursued the harshest penalties against Amber. The penalty clause alone would have destroyed her financially for life. Instead, I chose justice tempered with mercy, holding her accountable while leaving room for redemption. I learned that when someone betrays you, the way you respond reveals your character, not theirs. Grandma had always taught me that integrity matters most when it costs you something. By refusing to become bitter or vengeful despite Amber's betrayal, I honored Grandma's values in a way that no inheritance could represent. As I watched the final rays of sunlight disappear below the horizon, I felt Grandma's presence in the gentle breeze. This place would always connect us, not because of property deeds or legal documents, but because of the love we shared and the wisdom she instilled in me. Sometimes, the greatest inheritance isn't something you can sell or spend. It's the strength to face betrayal with dignity, the wisdom to seek justice without vengeance, and the courage to protect what's rightfully yours while leaving the door open for healing. Have you ever had to stand up to a family member who betrayed your trust? How did you balance seeking justice with preserving family relationships? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. And if you found my story meaningful, please like this video, subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories, and share it with someone who might need encouragement to stand up for themselves. Thank you for listening, and I hope you find the strength to face whatever challenges come your way with both determination and compassion.